Hello and welcome to The Conversation. This is Honest Faith Conversations. As always, I am your co-host, Kathy Covarrubias.
And I am Miguel Covarrubias. And today, this week, we are talking about 10 Cloverfield Lane.
If you guys haven't watched it, spoiler alert ahead, surprise, surprise there, it has been out for a year.
Yeah, and you can catch it on Hulu now, so it is available there.
Yeah, we actually just rewatched it last week, and it kind of like sparked some things in our brain, so we thought we'd go ahead and talk about it this week.
Yeah, we had, this was our last kind of hurrah as a non-parent married couple. So this was our last movie we actually saw in the theater, just the two of us.
Yep.
Before we actually had to worry about a baby. So.
Yes. Now, if we want to go see a movie, it's another big ordeal. So.
Yeah, making sure you have childcare.
Yes.
And
money.
Sure it's paid. Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's a big ordeal. So just as a rundown, if you haven't watched it and you don't want to watch it, we're just going to go ahead and give you a little bit of a summary. So 10 Cloverfield Lane is kind of, sort of related to Cloverfield, if you watch that. It's made by the same people.
Yeah. Well, it's produced by the same people.
Yeah.
It's, really, the only similarities are in name.
And the fact that aliens are involved.
Yes.
Spoiler alert, there's aliens. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. And I think the next movie that's coming out, they also are going to tie in aliens too, or something.
Yeah, and I haven't heard a whole lot about God Particle or not, if that's how that's going, or where that's going, or if that's going to be
aliens.
And so, yeah.
Anyway, so it's essentially about a woman who is kidnapped, is taken into a doomsday bunker, and is held captive by John Goodman. And
John Goodman is going to go and hold women captive in his doomsday bunker.
Miguel, you just totally ruined it. That was his plan all along.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Gosh. Anyway, so it's John Goodman, her, and another guy. They're living in this bunker.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and
Yep.
I have no idea I can't remember what the third actor's name is. But,
I can't remember either, but that's okay.
Yeah, his character's name is Emmett. But Mary Elizabeth Winstead, just in case you were looking, you're like, she seems familiar. What else was she in?
Yeah, she was in, oh my gosh, what is it called? It's the comic book thing.
Scott Pilgrim
yes.
versus the World.
Yes, she was Regina.
No,
it's not Regina.
Ramona,
yes.
Ramona
Sorry.
Flowers.
Don't hate me, everybody. I know. I'm tired and I'm a parent. Can you blame me? So anyway, so they're like in the doomsday bunker, and then chaos ensues. There's lies. There's threats. There's surprises. And it ends. Right? Is that a good summary of...
I guess so. Yeah, that works.
Do you want to add anything to my summary?
I mean, there is... The entire thing is kind of about fear, and it's more or less taking them on this journey through, how fear and perceptions can manipulate you.
Yeah, especially in like big life choices that they make.
Yeah.
For example, Emmett, the other guy who you learn kind of like forced his way into the bunker when Doomsday came about, so he wasn't necessarily supposed to be there. But anyway, he reveals in the story that he actually was really, really good at basketball. Is that what it was? Track.
Running.
Yes, he wasn't very good like with his grades, but he was really, really good in track, and he actually got a scholarship to attend one of the major universities around, and he had his ticket and everything to go, and last minute, like, fear got the best of him, and he just decided not to go. So really, like, I mean, he threw away an opportunity to get free college.
Well, and I mean, a lot of his fear, I think, is is kind of evident in everything that he does from then on. You know, it's kind of that he's afraid of making something of himself, or at least failing at something because of his grades, or he's afraid of being so good at track or whatever else like that. And then, you know, seeing him going into construction is you know, his fear of making something of himself, of, you know, but, you know, he seems like a person who would be good at construction, so you're just like, you might have ended up there anyway, but you could have been a foreman or an architect or something.
At least an architect.
Yeah. And you know, his fear of not rocking the boat is that evident with his interactions with both Michelle and Howard?
Yes, Howard. Yes. Yeah. He's very good at reading people. Like when he is noticing that Howard, when he starts to get angry, like he tries to like bring him back down, and he's very, very good at that. So he's pretty good at reading people, I would say.
Yeah.
And then Michelle's biggest fear, like when we first meet her in the movie, she's actually running away from a relationship. And she admits that she was afraid of where the relationship was going. And she said, too, that when she was younger, I don't know how much younger, but she remembers seeing, was it like a little girl getting abused?
Yes.
And she didn't stand up to, like, help that little girl. She just looked the other way. And she says that this is something that she does in her life all the time. And she, if you, again, spoiler alert, in the end, when she decides to go to, where does she go?
Houston rather than Baton Rouge. But I think it all kind of hinges on the one statement that she makes in the movie, which is that when things get hard, she runs away. Is that it's the fear of doing anything hard. You know, is and that's, you know, pretty common in all of them. And that's why she relates with Emmett, is because, you know, he has fear of success. She has fear of confrontation, fear of...
or I guess if it's something that I would equate to it is I have witnessed people that I have worked with quit just because it was getting too hard. Like, it's not that they weren't qualified. It's not that they weren't smart enough. But then all of a sudden they were getting given an extra project. And instead of getting help with it, or, you know, trying to work with their supervisor on the best way to do it, they just threw up their arms and say, no, I quit. Just because they didn't want to have the extra load, because they thought it was going to just be too hard. So I guess they're trying to find the easy way.
Yeah, the path of least resistance.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's probably what Michelle was doing, too. Like, if I run away, then I don't have to deal with it.
And, I mean, then you have Howard, who...
Oh, God.
I mean, there is a lot of crazy and fear wrapped up in Howard.
Yeah, fear of being alone, for one. I mean, even when he is, like, falling apart because acid, like, he fell in the acid. Was it acid?
Yeah.
Yeah, he fell in the acid. Like, his skin is falling apart. Like, he's clearly going to die. Like, no one survives something like that. He's still chasing Michelle around, like, the little bunker, and he says, don't leave me. He's begging her, like, don't leave me, as he's trying to kill her, mind you, but he is saying, like, don't leave me, so that's clear to me that he is afraid of being alone.
That kind of stems from a lot of the things that he has going on with his family, with them leaving him, and then him replacing his daughter with...
it turns out to be Emmett's classmate.
Yeah, Emmett's classmate, who, there's not any backstory on that, on how he got her there, how he, you know, kept her there, and, that's... just kind of questions that are left open in this movie, which are fantastic. But there is some backstory, just so you know, on Howard.
Oh yeah.
This may or may not connect Cloverfields is that
Besides the name Cloverfield.
during the promotion material stuff, there was a website that had the staff, and the staff for this company was Howard was on it. He was working with this satellite company. And not like a satellite company of another company. I mean, it's like an actual company that deals with satellites. And so that's why he had the perchloric acid, was because, it was going to be turned into jet fuel, and that's how he could have access to it, because he worked for this company. And so that's, kind of the backstory of that, and why he would have the money and the wherewithal to build a bunker. And
why, and for all we know, he built that bunker because of something they picked up with their satellites.
Yeah. And it's the satellite that you see in Cloverfield. That's this company's satellite. That's how people are connecting the two.
Yeah, so. And he also goes on about his little spiel about the enemy, and when the enemy attacks, like the different progression of what they're going to do. Like that's exactly what the aliens did. So it's he clearly either he has some weird, bizarre way of, getting premonitions of alien attacks, or, he kind of knew about them more than he was leading on.
Yeah. Which, could lead to another one of those fears for him, is that, the fear of the reprisal of if he let classified information leak.
Yeah.
Which, why would you be afraid of that if there is no more government anymore? If people are fighting the aliens or whatever, and why would you be afraid of reprisal?
I don't know. Well, he's crazy.
Yeah.
So, so who knows? Maybe in his we learned that there's still people out there. There's still people fighting. They have the weapons to fight the aliens. Because they were talking about how there's different, safe zones. Mm-hmm. So, clearly there's still people out there. There may still be a government. So maybe that's why he's kind of, scared about that.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we can talk about how fear has infiltrated our lives. I mean, I know everyone has had to deal with this before, making decisions solely based on fear and not necessarily rationale.
Yeah, well, for me, and I've said this before, is that I struggle with generalized anxiety disorder, and so a lot of my day to day is dealing with feelings of fear, is dealing with things that I'm afraid of things for my family and stuff like this, and it's usually most of the time at a low simmer, because I can deal with my day-to-day interactions without thinking the worst is going to happen. And worrying that the worst fears are going to happen. I would say that for me, the biggest thing that this affects is that the way that I treat things in my life is that I always, when I was a youth minister, I would always plan for the absolute worst case scenario to actually happen. It was that I always had a plan B just in case the worst case scenario thing ever happened. And that was kind of part of the training, was to do that, was to be, prepare for the worst case, but expect the best. And, I always expected the best, but I always made sure that I had worst case scenario. And, I can remember time after time that, things like this didn't happen, like the worst thing didn't happen. There's especially mission trips that are coming to my mind, is that the worst case scenario didn't happen, or it did happen, but it happened in a different way, and it just happened to be that the kids got angry at us because I got on them about the fact that they wandered off from a campsite that we were at.
Yeah. Note to self: anyone who is going on a trip and is under the age of 18. If you are in a new city and you wander off without, someone who knows that city, things may happen, and there's a reason why we get upset when you leave the pack. Anyway.
A lot of that has to do with fear, and that's, I think, the main thing that I'm getting at there within that one was the reason why we told them not to go away is because we're afraid of the things that could happen. And honestly, I feel like, for the most part, I think we as human beings, we tend to fear other human beings more than we fear like monsters or anything, like acts of God happening.
Well, yeah, and really it's a survival mechanism. If we didn't fear things, like the human race would have died a long time ago.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's what it is with those of us who have anxiety disorders, is that survival thing has just been pushed into overdrive for some reason or another, whether it be circumstance or nature versus nurture, rather.
Well, and and that's probably why, like, people with anxiety, other people see their reactions as being overblown, but it could just be we don't have those scary situations like we used to, like in the wild. Like, we don't come across bears on a daily basis. We don't come across wild animals anymore, like just walking down the street. So that natural fear that we would have expressed at that point in time isn't being used up, and because it's still so, like, as part of human nature as any other emotion, that we tend to, like, give littler things that aren't as dangerous the anxiety that we would normally put into a much more dangerous situation.
Yeah. And that's kind of, my story of fear, is that it's something that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, whether I let it take over my life or not. And, I do have those moments where I have panic attacks, and that's something that we'll talk about in a future episode, because we're going to have to go through This Is Us, that one episode a few weeks back where Randall had a panic attack. And that whole episode was my life. It's my life the past year, and anyway, I'm not going to go into that because I'll save that for that episode.
Yes. Like me, something that comes to mind with when fear really controlled my life, and definitely made things worse and did not make things any better, was when I was working at a particular job a few years back. I really should have quit. Like, looking back, like, I should have quit. But I didn't want to quit because, one, I was afraid of what would happen to us financially. I was afraid of how other people would perceive me as a quitter. So I definitely was afraid of, ruining my own reputation. I was afraid that it may hurt my chances getting a job in the future, which is silly. Like, I've never heard of somebody, I didn't get that job because I quit my last job. But those are definitely, like, those are real fears, like, in my mind. And so instead of quitting and, being a happier person, I stayed. And as a result, I was super, super anxious. I cried every single day driving to work. You didn't know that? He just gave a look, like...
No, it was because my phone went off. I'm sorry.
Oh.
I thought I still had it on silent.
I thought you were concerned for me, but apparently not.
No, well, I mean, I lived through it with you. I know what you're talking about. And, I mean, granted, we would have been okay financially, considering that we had rent that was less than $500 a month. I mean,
yeah,
man, I would give anything to get back to that point. But it was such a great apartment, too.
But it was haunted.
Yeah.
And it had bats. It had bats.
There you go. More fear to go into there. So.
Oh, God, yes. Okay. I hate bats so much. Like, I think about bats and I get sweaty. Like, right now, my anxiety is, like, already hiking up. Because I'm just imagining them, like, crawling through... Oh, God, Miguel, can we just change the subject? I can't even. God, they fly at your head. They carry rabies. Oh, no. No. Actually, thinking about it, I should have gotten the rabies shot.
It didn't bite you. You were fine.
I know, and it didn't land on me, but I should have gotten one as, like, a caution.
Yeah.
Anyway, bats. That is... Okay, sorry. Anyway. I, in research of this episode, was trying to find some Bible verses on fear. And, of course, when you, like, Google Bible verses about fear, like, you get everything. And you get some of the most cliched things
Well,
imaginable.
There are 365 verses in the Bible that mention the word fear.
What?
Yep.
Do you just know this off of the top of your head because you're like super smart and know about the Bible? Like
Partially, but it's also one of those things that a former pastor would be like, there are 365 verses in the Bible that mention the word fear. There's one for every day of the year.
What? That's so weird. Why would you Okay, whatever.
Well, and it's a lot of it is, them being like, see, God says don't fear. God says don't fear. But, it's telling somebody who has an anxiety disorder not to fear is kind of like saying, calm down.
Yeah, well,
to that same person.
And here's what I kind of, as I was reading through these verses, what kind of came up in my mind. Like, for example, this verse is from the Psalms. The Lord is at my side. I will not fear. What can man do to me? And to me, I see God in, like, every person. Mm-hmm. Like, even the worst people have a little bit of God in them. I know maybe I should have saved that for the controversial issues, but that's just how I have lived my life, and that's how I have chosen to view people. And so what I think that this verse is really telling me is that I should seek out help, like, from other people, because those people have the Lord in them.
Well, yeah, and there was I don't remember when we were talking about it, but when we talked about how people say, "Oh, just pray about it," and it's there was something that the priest, the church that we went to this morning, had said in his sermon that I was kind of like, I agree with you to a point. It was like, well, people are there to. This community is here to pray for you during the times of tribulation and the times that you are facing temptation. And I'm like, no. That's not why we're here together. It's not to pray for each other. We're here to stand next to each other and stand with each other. And I think that he would probably have a good conversation with me about it. And, I'm not saying anything against him. I'm just saying that it was something I disagreed with in his sermon because of the way that he said it. But I think with that is that's what Michelle and Emmett are doing in this movie is they're going to each other. They're standing with each other as finding a way out. It's like, okay, we need to get a way out of here.
Yeah.
Even if the outside is poisonous, in here is much more poisonous.
Yep.
And so that's why they kind of formulated the plan that they did. And so. Yeah.
And they really, like, through the course of this movie, like, formed a really strong trust with each other. They're very open with each other. I think probably because they could tell, like, geez, this other guy that's with us, he's a little cray-cray. Like, so I think that's kind of why they had that bond. And I think Howard didn't like Emmett because of the way Michelle trusted Emmett.
Well, and that's the thing is that he wanted Michelle to trust himself. Okay, this is going to get complicated. Howard wanted Michelle to trust Howard.
Yes.
Like a father.
Yes.
Like he wanted her to be like, be his daughter, to be his daughter's replacement. Mm-hmm. Which, that doesn't happen in life. You don't get a replacement.
No.
And I mean, this was his whole fear of being alone and everything else like that. Is that he really? This whole thing is about fear. Is about the way that fear kind of drives our lives, and this is how it was. What it was doing. It was that he was using it. He wanted her to trust him like that.
Well, and at some points in the movie, like, you can tell that Michelle's trust is fragile because it goes back and forth. Like, she obviously, I mean, when she wakes up and sees this man, obviously she's not going to trust him. Like, who?
Because she's chained to a wall.
Yeah, you're chained to a wall. There's something, like, there's an IV in your arm. Who knows, like, what really is in there? Because you don't know.
And she wasn't wearing pants.
And she wasn't wearing pants. There's a lot of bad things going on. And she then gets a little like starts to trust him a little bit when he takes her up to the surface and they see the dead pigs, and then again when they see the woman who comes to the door.
Yeah, with the mutated face.
Mm-hmm. Or the Fallout face is what I like to call
Fallout
it.
face.
Yeah. And
it wasn't ghoulish like from Fallout. So
yeah.
Just calling out to our former episodes. So.
But through the movie, Howard, like, he can sense when Michelle is starting not to trust him. Well, and it becomes kind of clear, too. But, and so then he knows how to manipulate her into a way to gain trust. Like, and he tried to do this, like, towards the end of the movie with the ice cream. That was him, like, one, being really super creepy, but then also, like, trying to earn her trust. Like, here, I am not going to harm you. Here's some ice cream.
Well, it also kind of begs, like, an idea that maybe the ice cream was drugged. That's why I was kind of like, okay, I wouldn't take the ice cream at all from you because I feel like it might be drugged, you know, and that's why he starts eating one of them because he can tell that's what's going through her head is that, you know, oh, they must be drugged, and so that's why. But he also reinforces this whole daughter narrative that he's built in his mind by giving her the one in the bowl because that's the one his daughter would have taken.
But I don't necessarily think, when I was watching it, I didn't think that she thought it was drugged. I think she was going, what the hell? Like, you murdered somebody, and now you're giving me ice cream? Like, what? That is not how life is supposed to work. You're supposed to, like, if you kill somebody, you're supposed to feel remorse. Like, you don't just, like, get ice cream and move on. Gosh, yeah, that scene just, like, really, really super creeped me out. I was not okay with this. And I don't know what else, like, how to move on from there.
Well, I think we should open up the controversial issues segment of our broadcast here. This is primarily why I wanted Kathy to write this episode was because it has to deal a lot with fears of being a woman, and I don't, because I'm a man, obviously. You
don't want to mansplain it?
I don't want to mansplain it, and it's that, you know, I think a lot of Michelle is going through a lot of course of this entire thing. I think the entire movie is kind of a whole kind of play on what women have to deal with in society nowadays. But you know, I don't want to speak to that because I can't really because I'm a man. I don't know the full extent of what women are afraid of nowadays, and so that's, you know.
Yeah, well, and I know there's going to be people out there that say, "Oh, women don't have to live in fear." But here's my thing: if you're a woman and you walk from the store to your car and it's dark outside, chances are you either, one, have your keys already in your hand, two, are prepared to use those keys in order to defend yourself if you have to, three, and they're totally aware of their surroundings. Like, when you walk into that dark parking lot, you're looking around, you're seeing if there's any possibility that somebody is hiding behind another car. I try to avoid using my cell phone, or if I do, it's to call somebody, just because you're less likely to be harassed or threatened by somebody if you're on your phone, because they see that person on the phone as like a witness to it. People who attack you are much more likely to attack you if they think you are alone. And I think that this is one of the reasons why women go to the bathroom in groups, is because that way they can, like, watch out for each other in case something were to happen between point A and point B, especially in some place that's really, really crowded. I know for a fact that, just speaking from my experience, I don't shop after a certain time of night by myself. I don't care, like, where I'm at, if it's Target, if it's Walmart. I just don't go shopping by myself after a certain time of day because I have been followed around the store. I have been, I've had advances towards me, and I clearly shut them down. I once had an old lady, start talking to me because she noticed somebody was following me. Like, this kind of stuff happens. And mind you, like, I lived in what a lot of people would consider to be a small city, more of a town to some people, depending on your view of the world. And so, like, it was relatively safe. Like, I felt relatively safe most of my life, but there was just certain points that I knew that I had to be aware of my surroundings and what was going on.
Well, and granted, where you lived before, it was, a lot of people didn't know each other, but there was, still things that happened and still things that went on there that, are terrifying.
Yeah.
Even now that we live in a big city, it's still not, necessarily safe.
Oh, no. I mean, right now there's a few girls that are missing right now. There's been a few murders. There's some guy who has kidnapped children and let them loose. Like, remember that story?
No.
He went in, he kidnapped a little girl. I can't remember how long she was gone, but then he just let her go.
Huh. That's weird. I didn't hear about that one. No.
Yeah. And then they think that he was casing another house at one point in time, too. But I believe the father chased him out. I may be completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure that this is from my memory, which... if you guys know anything about, human memory, you shouldn't trust it all the time. but in my memory, like, these are the details that are sticking out to me.
Well, and I think this is big for this movie because I think Michelle here is going through a lot of those things, in quick succession. I mean, waking up without pants on, for one, is, what happened to me, these, what's going on here, and traveling by herself. The first instance of that is when she's at the gas station and she notices Howard sort of in that truck. She just notices there's somebody in there, and you can't tell if it's him or not. But even
then, you notice that you can tell she's kind of like assessing the situation.
Yeah, and I mean, this entire movie is kind of about the way those things play out, and I mean when she finally trusts him and then is up there and fixing the air filtration, and she sees that message of help with the woman's earring, that's kind of that sets it all crumbling down again.
Yep.
Kind of thing. And anyway, I think this is all having to do with women live in fear, and I this is just something that I didn't even know was the case until I got married and we had a conversation about this, was about how women live in fear almost every day, doing everyday tasks, and just the way that women are targeted more than anybody else. And this is not to say that men aren't targeted for some reason or another, but they just are.
Yeah, like even if you look at like murder statistics, especially people who are murdered by strangers, it's more likely that a woman is going to be murdered by a stranger. Or somebody she's not like 100% tied to. But anyway. Moving on to something a little more happy.
Doomsday preppers. All right. Controversial issue only because they're doomsday preppers, which...
And that costs a lot of money.
Oh, it costs a ton of money. Which...
for something that may or may not happen.
Oh, I know. And, well, the funny thing is that the day after 45 was elected president, Kathy turns to me and says, do we have a bug-out bag? Because I think we need a bug-out bag.
For those who don't know, a bug-out bag is essentially a bag that you take when you have to bug out or like leave immediately in order to get somewhere safe so you don't have to pack. It's kind of like the equivalent to the bag you're supposed to pack when you go to the hospital when you're having a baby that somebody didn't pack.
Hey, I just forgot my stuff. Your stuff was all in there.
And honestly, like that thought of mine when I said that obviously was driven by fear. It probably was not rational, but in my defense, a lot of people were also super afraid that day.
Well, this was something that I tweeted about after that, was that that moment when Doomsday Preppers goes from being a campy reality show to a how-to documentary for the country. It's kind of a sad day.
Yep.
This is something that I think that a lot more Americans, they're probably, those companies that sell these things, these Doomsday Prepper things, they're probably making bank since 45 was elected president. Granted, this is just something, I'm saying off the top of my head. I don't have
Well,
any
they started
proof of
making
this,
bank like when Obama was elected because the people,
Oh, that's true. Now they've got the other side of the aisle.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yes. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I think it's very, very smart to know how to garden. Like, I grew up gardening. Like, my mom had a huge garden. We don't garden right now because our yard isn't very good for gardening. There's a lot of shade. But, I mean, if you gave me some seeds and some sunshine and some water, I'd probably be able to, whip up a garden pretty good. I know, just from Girl Scouts, I know some, like, basic survival stuff. Like, I can start a fire, like, using just sticks and rocks. I can do a lot of stuff. I could probably, like... Well, I wouldn't do it here, but
she
in
also
Montana,
knows how to sell cookies.
I do know how to sell cookies. Actually, no, I was very terrible at selling cookies. Well, because, like, back then you had to go door to door, and I hated going door to door. Like,
do they still do door to door now?
No, they're told not to.
And I think that's having to do with fear.
Fear, yeah. The fear of girls getting kidnapped.
Yeah.
When I was a little girl, when we were trick-or-treating, when we were selling Girl Scout cookies, I remember we had to knock on the door, take 3 steps back, because that gave you just enough space to where if somebody were to start to grab you, you could notice that they were trying to grab you and run away. Yeah, they trained you that in Girl Scouts.
Well, with Doomsday Prepper stuff is, I think it's only controversial to those who see that as, people who are just crazy. But, I think it's good to be prepared. It's
at
good
least
to
for
have,
little stuff.
Anyway, we're in an area of the country where if the zombie apocalypse does happen, we know the best place to go, and it's right across the lake from us. So. Yep.
Don't spoil it. Now everybody else is going to know.
Well, since Pat's video, everybody else is going to go there, too.
Don't tell them where we found out, because now they're going to find it. Miguel.
Well, I didn't say which channel.
Gosh.
And the last controversial issue with this is aliens. And you don't see me, but I did the whole meme aliens of that one guy with the crazy hair. I don't know if you've ever seen the Ancient Aliens show, but he's on every single one.
People have seen the Ancient Aliens show, Miguel.
I don't know. I don't know who's listening to our show.
Or at least have seen the meme. Yeah. But yeah, I believe
they exist. I don't think that our universe and a God that I believe in, that I think never ceases to act creatively and redemptively, I don't think that we are the only sentient life in the entire universe.
No.
That's just, what I have to say about that.
Speaking of aliens and weird creatures, there's a thing going on right now. I don't know if you guys have listened to other podcasts, but it's an initiative to get people to start listening to podcasts because as podcasters, we have found out that a lot of people, 1, don't know what a podcast is, 2, have no idea like how to listen to podcasts, and 3, think we're a little crazy because we have a podcast. But anyway, so right now, like in the podcast community, there's an initiative to get people to become aware of podcasts and how to listen to them, and having listeners share their favorite podcasts. It's called Tripod.
And this is an initiative kind of a little bit spearheaded by NPR and their podcast, primarily because their podcasts are the most popular podcasts.
Yeah.
But Yeah, definitely go out, share. What it is you go out and you share your favorite podcast with somebody else, and you show them how to get that podcast and how to listen to this podcast. And so we are hosted on Spreaker, but we're also on other websites as well as iTunes.
Castbox, iTunes.
Yeah, and iTunes is primarily the one way that most people listen to them. But if you have an Android device, it's kind of hard to find the right one to actually listen to. Mm-hmm. So Spreaker does have an app that you can download on Android phones, Android devices, or you also can download iTunes. Or you can download Stitcher or TuneIn or NPR One or
Castbox.
Yeah, any of these things. Or you can even find the podcasts in the Google Music Play store. So they have podcasts in there too. So you can try that. Anyway, when you do, make sure that you share it on social media, that you shared this with your friend and using the hashtag tripod.
Yes, tripod.
Yes.
Not whatever you put the first time.
Yes, I know. And anyway, just sharing a few of my own favorites that I have is obviously the NPR ones like Hidden Brain and the StoryCorps and Radio Lab. Those are some of my favorites. But one that I actually just listened to that I really enjoyed, and they shared us last week. Before they actually listen to us, but is Quadcast. Go check them out. They're great guys, and they also have another one going on with Between Two Sykes, I think it's called. Mm-hmm. But that's a good one. And
mine I really like, of course, Harry Potter and the Sacred Text, as I said before. I also like Stuff You Should Know. I also like Case File. If you guys like murder mysteries, like they're really great. They're actually relatively new too. They're from Australia. Check them out. I also like is it Finding Richard Simmons?
Yes, that one is getting really popular. I'm gonna have to start listening myself.
Yeah, that one is really good. Anyway, we're running a little bit out of time now that we're trying to squeeze in all of our favorite podcasts.
So, well, yeah, with that being said, go find us on social media yourself and let us know if you shared our podcast with anyone else.
Twitter, Facebook. We have a website, BeHonestFaith.com. No.
Yes. That's it.
BeHonestFaith.com.
And with that being said, come and join the conversation.